Marina D'Antuono, 69 AD. Decimus leaned his head back against the cool stone of his cell wall, arms propped on his bent knees. The darkness was suffocating, consuming. The damp air of the underground prison chilled his skin. He was alone with the exception of the guards that were always on duty. He'd learned their routines and duty shifts over the last few agonizing days. When he had been brought back to his cell after his victory in the arena, he was given a bucket of murky water and a rag to wash himself down with. It didn't take long for the water to become completely red, and the cloth irrevocably stained by the blood that covered Decimus. The tunic had been torn so completely that one couldn't tell it was once used to clothe a person. Discarding the shreds of linen, he was bare besides the loincloth they permitted him to wear. The partial nudity didn't bother Decimus. It was the gnawing, aching hunger in his belly that drove him to the brink of insanity. The guards fed him daily with a meager portion of bread in the morning and a watery soup in the evenings. His feeding schedule was the only way he could tell what time of the day it was. Not to mention the activity in the arena above his head. Mornings were filled with the beastly roars of animals being hunted for sport in the confined space of the arena. Around noon, he could hear the wailing cries of prisoners being executed. In the afternoon, Decimus listened to the harsh metallic bashing of sword versus shield as the gladiators dueled for the eager crowds. He could tell it had been 3 days since his failed execution. Not once was he given a scrap of meat. A few times he had lost his composure, ramming his shoulders against the brick walls of his cell to fight back the inner turmoil that threatened to bubble up and overwhelm him. He wouldn't let it happen, not here in this cage. More than a few times he had come undone, and involuntarily vomited what little food they gave him. He could feel his insides eating away at the walls he had carefully built to resist the urge to unleash himself. Decimus stood and paced his cell, each breath coming out ragged and guttural. Already he resembled the caged beast that he was, perhaps not in form, but in manner. If his hunger was not satisfied soon, he knew what would happen. The sounds around him were deafening. Even the subtle rhythms of the guards' heartbeats pounded in his temples. He could smell their acrid sweat, the metallic essence of their weapons, the leather of their sandals and armor straps. The earthy scent of the grass just outside the arena echoed the call of freedom to the animal within Decimus. It was a call that he could not hear with his ears, but feel in his soul. If he wasn't released soon, Decimus would no longer be in control, and it was a terrifying thought. A new sound crashed through his senses, and Decimus froze, standing utterly still in the darkness. A gate was opening. Footsteps were drawing closer. It wasn't time for the change of guards, and the parade of this new visitor did not sound the same as those of the guards. There was no clanging metal, no weapon. There was the clinking of coins in a leather pouch that was unmistakable to Decimus's ears. Decimus lowered himself to the floor and crouched, his fingers digging into the clay floor to steady himself. Golden eyes nearly glowed in the darkness, a brighter and more beastly color than his usual hazel. Regardless of the efforts that Decimus took to hide his true nature, the eyes were one thing he had little control over at a time like this, when hunger was all he could think of. He ducked his head, hiding his eyes as the visitor came to his cell and stopped. Decimus didn't need to look up to know that it was a man of moderate wealth. His clothes were clean, with the exception of the stench of sweat around his arms and the dusting of dirt on the hem of his garments. 2 armed guards that flanked him on either side accompanied him down there to the prison. They reeked of fear. The visitor did not. He could feel the haughty air emanating from the stranger. He obviously didn't see what Decimus had done to the lion days before. If he had, he would be afraid just like the others.